Welcome to the DraftKings wide receiver analysis for Week 7. I'm Jason Gilba, JGilba11. With me is Justin Elick at Big Italy 42. Looking at wideouts this week, a couple guys that were obviously going across all sites are going to be the top plays. No real difference here with kind of AJ Green and Jones. Kind of first question, I mean, is there a reason why you have Jones or Green listed as cash here on DK?
Yeah, only reason difference. Obviously pricing is exactly the same. I just think he makes for a slightly higher floor on DK with the 100-yard bonus with the extra half point for PPR. So I mean, you're kind of splitting hairs at this point. He's just a great play either way. He's a viable option in cash, I think, on both sites. But I think on FanDuel for me, I'll probably go. I think there's other options you can go with there, but I do think he's got a higher floor on DK because I think his volume is going to be, maybe second to none this week because the Bengals have to win this game. I mean, they're 2-4 facing the Browns, so you can get the ball to your best player, especially with no Joe Hayden. So I don't know if it'll be quite the numbers he put up against the Dolphins. What was it, 10 for 173? But I mean, he should easily see double-digit looks here.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at, if the touchdown doesn't come, all those scoring changes, I mean, that you mentioned, that makes it a little bit easier if he doesn't score. FanDuel, it's a little bit of a different story.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's plenty of top options. He's got a great floor either way, but just to kind of get yourself that extra little bonus there, like you said, if he doesn't find the end zone.
Yeah. But your top guy that you have here, Julio Jones, 9,200. Obviously, with all the value out there this week, shouldn't really have a problem fitting him in.
No, and I mean, it's a great matchup. We mentioned how high that team total is. I mean, this one's kind of I don't want to say obvious or must play, but I mean, he's definitely the top option this week. And I think you'd be crazy if you're playing a cash game on it that doesn't have shares of this Atlanta offense. So if you're not playing Jones, I mean, you better be playing Matt Ryan in your cash games, because if they do score how Vegas thinks they're going to, you gotta be rest assured that these guys are going to be a big part of it.
Yeah, you definitely want some exposure. So, yeah, looking at AJ Green, Julio Jones is kind of the top pay-up options there for cash games. Going into GPPs, Brandon Marshall, 7,600. Obviously a situation where people might look and go, oh, I don't really like Marshall with Geno Smith this week. But you know what? I think regardless of who's under center, he's going to get his looks.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who's kind of safe anyway. I mean, we saw how horrible this offense was last week. I mean, I wouldn't say the worst performance. They've had a couple of bad performances this week or this year, but
that Chiefs one was pretty bad.
That was pretty rough. But I mean, Marshall.
Someone said to stack them too. It was a wild week of that.
I'll own that one. That was a rough week. That was a rough week, but they were low owned, so I know that part of it. But yeah, that was rough. I was not on them last week. So, I mean, since that day, Fitzpatrick has looked horrible, and obviously bad enough to get Geno Smith back under center. So Fitzpatrick now going to be making a ton of money to hold a clipboard. So maybe that was his plan all along, is just get a ton of money, go sit on the sideline, and not get hit anymore. You never know. But
those Harvard man.
Yeah, he's a smart man. He knew what this business transaction was all about. But this is a great matchup for Marshall. I mean, I was looking at the how bad the Ravens have been this year. And obviously, if you're looking at, just the surface numbers for Baltimore, they look like they're 14th against the pass, number 1 against the run, according to Football Outsiders. But, you dig a little bit deeper and you look at what they've actually allowed. And in 6 games, they've allowed 4 different wide receivers to score multiple touchdowns. Crabtree had 3, Beckham had 2, Allen Robinson had 2, Corey Coleman had 2. So, I mean, that's not to just predict that Brandon Marshall scores 2 touchdowns here, but they obviously have just no chance of slowing down number 1 wide receivers here. So, I mean, I'm a huge Marshall fan this week, and he's a guy that probably be the first guy I'm clicking into my GPP lineups.
Yeah, and a really nice drop down in terms of price from AJ Green, about $1,000 difference, even more so with Julio Jones. Jarvis Landry, this is where I'm going to pick my battle here in terms of where we argue for the week. DK, obviously the scoring here is pretty solid because obviously Landry's a big PPR type player. I'm not in love with the matchup with Nickel Roby for Buffalo, but I can definitely see it kind of paying off in a GPP if he kind of gets those catches, 10 or 11 for 80 yards.
Yeah, I mean, so what's our over under here? Because I know you got me last week, so you're 2-1.
2-1, yeah. If you didn't watch, it was Jordy Nelson. We had the over under of 15. Yeah. I mean, it's different with the PPR scoring. I mean, it's got to be what, 8 catches for 80 yards. That's about what it would be.
Yeah. I'll give you 16. I mean, kind of by default, I think he's going to see, double-digit targets like he has in all but one game, because even if LaShawn McCoy doesn't play, which I guess he was practicing today, maybe he is going to play. I mean, that Buffalo offense, all of a sudden, under a new regime, they look, I won't say unstoppable, but I mean, they are a well-oiled machine right now. So they're going to put up points. And I mean, we saw in a couple games where Dolphins getting blown out. I mean, even that Bengals game, obviously, he still didn't put up much, but 7 for 61 in that game, and a lot of that came late when they were down big. So I do think he's going to see a ton of looks by default. Never going to predict a touchdown for Jarvis Landry because he doesn't score a lot. But I mean, I don't think that a 10 for $110 is out of the realm of possibility. So I think that I think he's got a nice floor, and he does have upside because someone's going to need to score touchdowns for this team. And I don't know if I'm much of a believer in this running game quite yet, especially in this matchup.
No, JJ is not going for 200 plus again. That's for damn sure.
Well, definitely not 200. I don't even know if he'll go for 100 again. But I mean, maybe not never, but not in this matchup. He's not.
No, definitely not. Value wide receivers here. Pierre Garcon, 3,700. Awesome play against the Lions secondary. That's just god awful.
Yeah, I mean, this one's kind of self-explanatory. As we mentioned earlier, Jordan Reed now officially out. Deshaun Jackson looks like he's on the wrong side of questionable. And, this is still a team that, passes the ball quite a bit. And Garcon is actually – this isn't even just kind of he's going to be stepping into a bigger role this week. Let's hope it pans out. I mean, Garcon this year, double-digit BK points in 4 of 6 games last 2 weeks, 5 for 56 and a touchdown, 6 for 77 on 11 targets last week. And, I mean, this is a really good spot, like you mentioned, against the Lions. He's 700 above minimum. I think he's one of those guys you just go ahead and lock in your cash games and move on.
Yeah, I mean, great guy to plug in at that wide receiver 3 spot, especially if you're paying up at the other 2. He's one of those guys that opens up value at a pretty good rate. Golden Tate a little more expensive, but staying in that same game, 4,900. We talked about him on FanDuel, but you like him as kind of the pivot off of Jones.
Yeah, and I know you're not a huge fan here either, but this is still a team with
You seem disappointed. It was a disappointed.
I was a little surprised. I kind of thought you wouldn't be on Landry, and that's fine. That's why he's in a GPP. But I mean, at this price, I just want as many pieces of Detroit's offense as I can get here in the passing game. That is because Redskins still been one of the worst teams in football defensively. They don't seem to be getting any better. Matt Stafford, in competitive games, he's throwing the ball 40 plus times most weeks, and I mean he's just being so efficient and. Maybe Golden Tate just needed kind of that confidence-building performance that he had last week because he really struggled over the first month or so of the season. So I do think that, he's in a good spot here, and I think he's going to still see a decent amount of volume because the Lions will be lying if they tell us they have any sort of faith in this running game, unless Theo Riddick comes back and is not limited. But, I mean, it seems like even if he plays, he's not going to be 100%.
Yeah, I mean, there's no Eric Ebron. That's targets spread elsewhere. Obviously, Theo Riddick, who probably not going to play this week. It doesn't seem like he is. That's more targets to shift around. It's basically just Jones and Tate at this point and Bolden there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if there's going to be someone repeating a performance, obviously not as big as it was last week, but to have another big game, I think Tate's a much safer bet than Anquan Bolden, obviously.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that.
So, I mean, I think he gets 8 to 10 targets by default here.
Yeah. Let's go wrap things up with the DraftKings wide receiver analysis for week 7. Be sure to head on over to dailyfantasycafe.com. Check out our great tools and content.